You're live. Cool. All right. We're good.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Lion's Den. We're running a little bit early again this week, and this may be the norm from now on because, as you can see, Cal has been joining us. Really, we were talking about it a little bit earlier how the Lion's Den always has been more towards data and AI, and this is with so much emphasis on Rafiki of late, so many features being added, everything of that nature, and it becoming an important component to the Leo ecosystem. And as we've discussed on past shows, quite frankly, AI is important to every ecosystem. If you don't have AI, you're probably done, in my opinion. And I think Cal certainly agrees with that too. So this is probably going to be mostly a weekly thing, which means fitting it into Cal's schedule, which, as you all know, can be very dynamic. And so
It's
just
a nice way.
so just the 1 o'clock hard line that I always did with the Lions Den, the consistency is going to wane a little bit, but we feel we pick up another benefit of having Cal on and getting his insights as to what he's doing, what's being developed, because he's the one who's really prompting Rafiki for new features. We were just talking about that quickly too, where he has an idea or an idea is fed to him from the community, and he is always asking for more ideas. But also Rafiki overnight comes up with ideas, and then Cal's the one who either prompts the new ideas outside of Rafiki. Rafiki obviously prompts his own ideas, and then Cal has to, review the code and review it and just make sure and do the testing and all that good stuff. So uh, that's how, just to do a little housekeeping here, that's how this is starting to shape up. So obviously we're looking at the numbers and there's not a lot of live people. Of course, most people are going to say in an hour, oh, I missed it. So just be mindful that from about 10 a.m. Eastern time to, let's say, noonish, maybe 1-ish Eastern time, depending on the how Cal's schedule is, we will uh, be somewhere in that time slot, and we'll try to give as much notice and as much of an ETA of where we're targeting as possible. So that said, now that we got that out of the way, we have had another busy week with Rafiki. We've had another busy week with um features being added. And what I want to start with, and then Cal can jump in a little later. I've been talking for years about data. I've been talking about for years about threads. I've been talking for years about feeding the Hive blockchain. And data is the main driver. It still is, obviously tied to compute, obviously tied to algorithms, and all of that is out of our, when I say out of our, the community's hands. We're not programming the algorithms, we're not providing the compute. So, but what we can do is provide the data. And Rafiki is a great tool for this for a couple of different reasons. And I'm going to put together a post. I decided that this morning with different ways you can interact with Rafiki to get a lot of data. Now, for example, here's a couple of simple things just to throw them out there. Rafiki, give me the top 3 stories for today in blank or about blank. So, Rafiki, give me the top 3 stories about NVIDIA today. Give me the top 3 stories about Tesla today. Give me the top 3 stories about, Washington, D.C. today. Give me the top 3 stories about Hurricane Bob. give me the top 3 stories about the New York Yankees or Real Madrid or whatever. And Rafiki will go out and search and pull those stories and put them on threads. Another thing you can do is, Rafiki, give me an in-depth history of uh, IBM. Rafiki, give me an in-depth history of Warner Brothers. Rafiki, give me an in-depth history of Paramount and give me your analysis of what their acquisition of Warner Brothers is. These are things that you can do just on threads, to interact with Rafiki. And Rafiki will answer by providing threads, and now it's all on chain. The other thing you can do is you can do the same thing I just said, but you can do it in Discord. And if you set up your Discord for DMs with Rafiki, which you do a Rafiki search on threads if you're having an issue, because I ran into an issue and I think Cal put up a thread about how to get around it where my permissions were messed up and I wasn't allowing for, unsolicited or unfriended DMs. So I had a little issue. So make sure that's turned on where you can get interactions. You can get DMs from non-friends because Rafiki isn't a follower, isn't a friend on Discord. But you can ask these questions on Discord. Here's the third thing to throw it out quickly that I think is really fantastic. Rafiki, give me an in-depth summary of this article and then link the article. And it can be from any article. It can be an article from HiveBlog or in Leo or Peak D. It can be from the Hive blockchain. It also can be from Forbes. It can be from the New York Times. It can be from the Washington Post. It can be from the BBC. It can be from any site. You take the URL and you say, Rafiki, give me an in-depth summary of this article, and you put the link in there. Now, if you do that as a top-line thread on the latest feed, obviously with links, it will not show up, but it will show up in your feed. It will also show up in your notifications. But this also provides a vast amount of data, and especially if it's news sites. So if you go to even your local paper, if you go to a New York Times, a CNN, an ABC, a Fox News, a BBC, whatever your preferred destination is, that gets news in Leo. That gets news into Rafiki's vector database. Now, this is very important for something called context. Now, Cal has mentioned, I think he mentioned it on last week's Lines Ends, but he also mentioned it on the AMA, where one of the things Rafiki is being a great aid for is right now for in Leo, and I imagine it's expanding out to Hive too, that Rafiki is able to do a lot of troubleshooting. Rafiki is able to do a lot of solution providing, and Rafiki is able to do a lot of coding simply because it has the context of all the Leo docs, because it has the context of all the threads that Cal responded to. I presume it has all the context of the GitHubs or GitLabs. It also has the data from Discord where people put in tickets and they got responses and things like that. So now Rafiki has all this context about in Leo, about Leo DEX, about threads, about all that's going on. And as a tangent, it's also getting this stuff about the Hive blockchain. It's also getting this stuff about, witnesses. It's getting all this information. So it has context. So if somebody proposes something and Cal says, okay, he prompts Rafiki to design this for in Leo, well, Rafiki is aware of in Leo. Rafiki has context. So Rafiki has more idea of what's being described or what's desired. And less description is required because Rafiki already can figure out, well, okay, I understand what a thread is. I understand what a thread storm is. I understand what a thread cache is. Rafiki has this understanding. So then Rafiki can operate in the context. And what I just said about the article being linked and asking for a summary of the article, that basically is, for those who understand the terminology, that's nothing more than thread storm. Because if you remember the old thread storms where you just took something and you just kept linking underneath, and so you had your top line thread and then you had 8 or 10 comments underneath that were all pertaining to that top line thread. It's the same thing with the summaries. You have the link at the top line thread, and underneath is the summary itself, and you can sit there and just scroll down and read through it. It's a thread storm. So it took very little time for Cal to design that when I proposed it to him, because he said, well, okay, yeah, we do have that capability. So he put it in there. I mean, the most timely thing was he ended up, what's that called, Cal, when it's the thread, then the comment within a comment.
Thread storm. And
No,
then nested replies.
Nesting. Yeah, nested replies. And then I said, well, I don't like it that way. I did it this way, and I think it looks a little better and it's readable. And he agreed. But that took the most time, I think, because Rafiki already understood what a thread storm was. Now, the final point I'll make, and Cal probably can jump in with this a little bit more since he's even more knowledgeable about it than I am. But I've always talked about, let's just call it the top line or the obvious data, the readable data, a thread, a post, a comment. What are you doing there? The reply. What are we putting on threads? What replies? What is Rafiki saying? How are we interacting with Rafiki? All of that. And that provides a lot of data. But I want everybody to understand the exponential that's here, because there's another layer of data that most users don't see and most users don't consider. And that's metadata. Because everything you do in Leo, every thread you make, everything you do, there's metadata. And what is metadata? Metadata is basically, the easiest definition is data about the data. So when you put up a thread and Rafiki goes through and indexes it, embeds it, puts it in Rafiki's vector database, it takes all the information in the thread. So let's say it's a thread about the New York Yankees, and it mentioned a particular player, Garrett Cole. Well, all of a sudden it takes that thread and it'll know New York Yankees are Major League Baseball. Garrett Cole is a pitcher. Major League Baseball, New York. Well, there's the New York Mets. New York City, there's, Mandami is the mayor. New York City, the World Trade Center. On and it goes. New York City's in New York State, which is in the United States. The Yankees have X number of championships. A teammate of Garrett Cole is Aaron Judge. It's doing all this linking up, right? That's the obvious, the data that you see. But what's the metadata? The metadata is that I posted it on Friday, February 27th, that Cal came through and upvoted, that Rafiki came through and made a comment, or Joe Smith came through and made a comment. And that this is if it's tied to the Hive blockchain, because there's custom JSONs, it talks about what block that is in. It talks about all these different things, and Rafiki is compiling all that data. So this is how Rafiki kind of understands what each individual is doing and actually has data about your account and other accounts and your relations to each other. So people this week have been asking, I noticed, Rafiki, who is the individual I engaged with or I commented on the most this week? And it'll say, you engaged with Cal 11 times or 14 times. That's how Rafiki knows. Rafiki's looking at the metadata, and it may also be pulling out, obviously, from the threads, but it looks at the metadata, and that's how you get, well, Rafiki, who did I upvote the most in the last 2 years? Well, that's pulling all the metadata on the Hive blockchain. So again, when we start looking at this thing, and I want to start using going forward, because it's something that is talked about Ahmad Mostaki, he was just on with Raul Powell this week. And he's talking about, everybody's talking about AGI. And he said, forget AGI, who cares? It's basically, and he didn't use the term context, but basically he didn't use the word context. He said ACI, I forget what the C stood for. It wasn't context or capability, but basically that's what he was talking about. He's saying, we don't need AGI. We don't need general intelligence. We need intelligence that it's capable, it's useful, it can actually do stuff, it understands, it has context. And so when we're looking at that, if this is coming from Mustaki, I don't know how you say his name, Cal, but he's a guy who is a bigwig and a heavyweight in the AI world. This is a guy to listen to and to model after and replicate. So this is where I think we have to understand all these different layers of data are being fed into Rafiki. And listen, if there's 10 people engaging with Rafiki, that's great. But 25 people engaging with Rafiki is better. 50 is a lot better. 100 is a lot better. And the same thing with threads. If we're doing 1,000 threads a day, that's good. If we're doing 5,000 threads a day, that's better. 10,000 threads a day is even better. And again, think of the synapses for conceptualization. Think of the links. Think of the idea connections that are formed. And I actually did a prompt of Rafiki, and it's not a 1-for-1. So if we do one thread versus 10 threads, the 10 threads is not a 10x of Rafiki. It's a much higher, it's a higher ratio. It's like 10.7 or 11.1 or something. Then if you go to 100 threads is not 100x of the one thread. It's like 128 or 200 or something like that. And it just gets larger and larger as the number of threads grows, simply because of all this linking and the synapses with it. So with that, Cal, I'll throw it to you to comment on some of that. Is there anything that you want to add to, or you want to comment on before we move to some of the features and some other things?
Yeah, I think you did a really good job covering it. I think the point on the exponentials is probably the most important one to drive home, which is, every comment on chain is a piece of data that Rafiki internalizes, which is a lot different than, for example, like he's able to search the web, but that is a lot different of a tool call than when he uses threads for that data. So you could kind of think of it in two different ways. When something is posted on threads, Rafiki remembers it in a way where it's almost like he learned it, right? Like if you consider Rafiki to be like a human, like something that's posted on internalizes. I think I disconnected. Am I back?
Yeah, you're here.
Rafiki actually internalizes when something is posted on threads. It's very similar to like a human learning something, right? When something hasn't been posted on threads and Rafiki has to go searching for it, it's more like giving a human a smartphone and saying, here's Google search. So if you then ask that human, which is obviously Rafiki in this example, that question, if they immediately know the answer, it's already in their brain, then Rafiki is able to just instantly give you the answer and give you an answer that's also more comprehensive. But if Rafiki has to search the web for it, that's a tool call, so it takes a little bit longer. It's not to say he won't give as good of an answer, but he will be subject to what he's able to find on the internet, right? So there's like a very different level of memory when it comes to what you already know versus what you have to go find. And when I look 6 months out from now, because I think it's hard to look at AI anything more than 6 months. I mean, it's like in 6 months, I think everything will look completely different than it does now. So, just with the pace of how things are moving. But when I look 6 months out from now at what Rafiki could be capable of, I'm imagining we've got about 5 million threads right now. I'm imagining that we are, and that is what's been created since the beginning of time. I imagine that we're north of 10 million by 6 months from now, and I think we're kind of on this accelerated pace for that. Um, and and in 6 months, when we've got 10 million plus threads, and then it's going to keep exponentially growing from there. Rafiki's capabilities at 10 million threads versus 5 million in terms of training data is not 2x. It's like more than 10x. I mean, and it's because it's hard to explain, but when you've got that like semantic knowledge, like a human, where it's like already in your brain, it's a lot different than knowledge that you have to go search for. But when you combine the two, because Rafiki is obviously able to search for knowledge, and this was actually a big update in the last week since the last Lions Den, was me finding, like, because I'm looking at conversations with Rafiki and trying to figure out how we can make them better and make his answers better. And one thing that I kind of created a force function for in the past week was when Rafiki answers your question. If it's a simple question, like if you say like "Good morning, Rafiki" or something, obviously he just answers, right? It's like a really simple, quick answer. He's not calling any tools. And when I say calling tools, I mean Rafiki has like this tool set. Like you think of it like a tool belt. He can like search the internet. He can generate an image. He can give you a GIF. Those are all tools in his tool belt. So if you prompt him a certain way, he'll pull out whatever tools you're asking him for. So when you ask him to generate an image, he's pulling out his generate image tool. But one thing I forced into Rafiki in the past week was when you get a complex question from someone, which is like a multi-part question, for example, or just like a lengthier question in general, your tool call should be twofold, which is one, pull from your existing memory, which is all the threads that have ever been posted, and then two, search the internet and compare the two, and basically almost have like two versions of yourself, or like two people sitting at a desk together, and say one person is Rafiki, who has the brain of threads, and then the other person is Rafiki with Google loaded up on a smartphone, and the Google Rafiki is searching for the answer, and then the other Rafiki is searching threads for the answer, which is his own knowledge that he's got instantly. And then they compare the answer, and then they give you a final answer together. So it gives you a much better answer because it's basically like double checking your answer before you give it, right? So that's the best way I can think of to describe it. Like Rafiki's brain is threads, but then he also has all these tools that he can combine in order to give you a final answer. So that was my way of saying the more that we can get onto threads, the better, because it does improve Rafiki's local knowledge, which is like his brain.
If I can just throw my own correlation in there, that may help. It's what Cal is basically saying, if I'm understanding it correctly, is threads is what's in your brain, what you know. You know your name, you know where you live, you know what the color green is, you know how to count to 10, you know who the president of the United States is, you know all this stuff, you know you're on planet Earth, you know what Mars is and the moon, you have all this knowledge. What Cal is saying is that's threads. Outside of that, when Rafiki has to go do a search, that's like you go and find out the answer by, and I'll go old school, pulling out a book. And you open a book and you read the book, you look at the knowledge, but what happens? You get the answer, but do you know the answer? No, because 2 hours later, if somebody asks you the same question, say, shit, I looked that up, but I forgot. That's the problem what Rafiki has with going and doing the search. And of course, the knowledge that comes from the book is operating under the presumption that what's written in the book is correct. Well, if it's a fictional book and Rafiki's taken that as gospel, as historically accurate, but it's a fictional book, that's a problem. So this is where hallucinations and other things come in, or, well, hallucinations also come from the fact that an AI system just doesn't know something, and so it just says, fuck it, I'll make it up. And kind of like people do, which it's amazing how everybody says, well, the AI's giving me the wrong answer. It's like, you ever ask people a question? It's like, did they ever give you the wrong answer? Well, it's making stuff up. Do people make stuff up? Or how many people say, I don't know to a question? Most 90% of the time, they'll make some crap up. It might or might not be correct. So that's the thing. The more you get onto threads, the more that's fed in there, the more the context that Rafiki has for the world that's around us. And because it's going to threads, That's its knowledge base. And so, yes, we want stuff about Leo. Yes, we want stuff about the Leo tokens. We want stuff about all that stuff. But we want a lot more because people want to know about their own country. They want to know about their own state. They want to know about their own town. But people sit there saying, well, I can't get any information out. Well, put information in, and if it's just like anything else, if you're learning, you have two types of learning. It's like archival systems when we built them, going from paper documents to digital. It's like, well, how do I build it? Do I start from the first day of my business? No, it's start from today forward and go back. And what that means is any information you got today, any paper documents you got coming in today, scan them immediately, get them into digital. Then as time allows, as a old file is pulled, for example, then you scan that in and get that old historic data or historic documentation in. It's the same thing here. We want to feed both current news, stuff that's happening today in crypto, in the stock market, in the world around, the news. We want news. This is why X is so important for Grok. This is why X, in my opinion, it comes down to X and Google, because Google has YouTube. They have all the news. People are posting all the news as it happens there. Plus, then at the same time, we have to pull the historic information if we can and try to get that up there. Now, fortunately with Hive, Rafiki has some of that in its database because people were talking about crypto and people were talking about Bitcoin and all this other stuff. So in certain sectors, we did okay. And there's 5 years or 6 years worth of threads, and people were talking about Bitcoin and Leo and Hive and all different stuff over that time. And there were other things there. But again, for the most part, the number of threads that have more than just good morning in them, I would say the quality is less than desirable overall. But that's where the next 5 million threads, we could do much better.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just going to continue to accelerate too, because I think as you guys use Rafiki, what Task is saying is going to get more and more obvious, because you're going to ask Rafiki something and you'll be like, what? I kind of recognize that answer. You know what I mean? It's almost like you remember that previous conversation that happened, whether it was with Rafiki or with any other user, because Rafiki knows every interaction on threads. So it's not just interactions with him, it's any interaction. So you may have had an interaction with someone a year ago, and then Rafiki can recall that as if he was listening.
If I can, here's something interesting. And you can also tell me, Cal, where if my thinking is correct. A lot of times I'll ask for in-depth analysis on Discord, because in-depth analysis or biographies or historical information about companies or whatever, I want something a little bit longer than a thread storm. And what I did today is there was a video that I came across. It was talking about air taxis, and it was the name of a company that I had never heard of. And obviously these are startups and stuff like that, maybe only a few years old. So I wasn't familiar with the company. So I went to Discord. Now I took the video and I put it in threads and I put summarized. And so when I went to Discord and I said, give me in-depth history of this company and also provide an analysis of what you think, where it stands in its industry. And Rafiki came back in, and I brought this up to Cal. There was a problem. He said there was a problem with his search. But based upon threads that he pulled, he gave me some information. Guess where he got that information? That was from the AI summaries I had posted like 5 minutes before. That's where he pulled the information, because that information was, like Cal said, in his brain, because he had indexed it and embedded it from the thread storm or from the AI summaries that were created from that video being posted and summarized. This is how it works. So there is a prime example, just by default, because the search functionality was not working properly, the internet search, where Rafiki was still able to provide an answer. Now, obviously, it wasn't as in-depth as I wanted, but that just shows you the process. And am I mistaken, Cal? How what is the benefit for using Discord and generating data in Discord by engaging with Rafiki on Discord through the DMs? Does that help provide a lot more data? And is that in the knowledge base, secondary to threads, but still not as far out as the internet? Or is it still at the same level as threads and it's just more in depth and give you a lot more information?
It's different. So when you engage with Rafiki on threads, or when you, I mean, honestly, when you post any thread whatsoever, whether Rafiki's involved or not, that is put to the blockchain, right? So it's written in stone, is how I would look at it, and it's added to Rafiki's knowledge base, you know, like bricks being added to to a big wall, right? When you converse with Rafiki on Discord, he is evaluating the conversations and ranking what's happening in those conversations. So he's looking for user dissatisfaction, or basically, I'd say user dissatisfaction is probably the number one thing he's looking for, where he's basically like ranking the conversation he's having with you. And if it seems like it's not a good conversation, like you have to clarify things, you have to ask him multiple times for the same thing, you tell him he's giving you the wrong answer, he's using that to modify his behavior and tweak how his conversations go in the future, which is much more like an AI model would do, like ChatGPT, for example. When you have conversations with ChatGPT, it's not necessarily using the conversations you have with it as knowledge for future conversations with other people, like in general, right? It's not like adding your conversations to its brain, but it is collecting that, almost like how, like, when you call like a call center or something, they're like, this conversation will be recorded for training purposes, right? Kind of similar for Rafiki and really all AIs. And that's how Rafiki works on Discord, which is when you have conversations with him, he's collecting those conversations and ranking them to see if there's anything he can improve. Which is a lot different than when you have a conversation on threads, whether with him or anyone else. That's getting written to the blockchain, which Rafiki is then indexing into his own knowledge base. So basically adding it to his brain. So when you do something with him on Discord, he's not adding that to his brain, but he is evaluating the conversation and looking for behavior changes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
So much more
So,
like using ChatGPT like when you're using it in Discord, it's much more like when you use ChatGPT, where like if you tell ChatGPT, "Hey, I want you to remember, that my name is Cal, and if someone else asks you about me, call them Cal." Well, ChatGPT is not going to do that because they're not taking your data and then using it for other users. But when you post something on Threads, Rafiki is taking that data and then using it in the future for everybody.
now, if I'm not mistaken, what OpenAI will do is they do take all those chat conversations that people have with Chat GPT, they take all that data and they use it to train the next generation model. Is that correct?
Yeah, um, that's basically what they do. But what's interesting about it is that 99% of those conversations are kind of throwaway. Like they don't need you to tell them, like who died today, or what happened today in the news, right? Like they're already getting that elsewhere.
Mhm.
So I think the
So
interesting thing
maybe
is,
my question is, will these conversations on Discord be used to train future versions of Rafiki?
I think our approach is a little bit different. It's more, which is much like the approach of all things, Leo. It's like, fuck it, we'll do it live. We're not like really training the next model. We're doing the training immediately. So,
Okay.
like, if you have a conversation with Rafiki and it doesn't go well, he actually notes that. I've talked about this a little bit on Threads, so you probably could ask Rafiki about it and he'll tell you. But we created something called patrols. So Rafiki runs these continuous patrols, and this includes every conversation that's had, including Discord conversations, and then conversations on Threads, whether Rafiki's involved or he just knows, like if you use hashtag feedback or things like that. Rafiki's collecting all the feedback into like a giant pile, and then he's evaluating it. He's sorting it by like what is worth evaluating more deeply, what is just kind of throwaway, what he's already addressed previously, et cetera, et cetera. So this happens multiple times per day, and it includes the Discord conversations. But what I guess the best way to understand it is that during a patrol, Rafiki's looking at the Discord conversations for specific things he can learn about his own behavior, versus when there's threads indexing, which is separate from patrols, he's actually adding that to his memory. So post on threads that, the sky is blue, obviously just an example, post on threads that the sky is blue, Rafiki now knows that the sky is blue. It's added to his brain. If you I got disconnected again. If you prompt him in Discord and you say, Rafiki, the sky is blue, he's not adding that to his brain. But let's say you say the sky is blue, and then he goes, no, the sky is yellow, and you go, no, the sky is blue. Then he'll recognize user dissatisfaction and include that in the next patrol and say, why was this user dissatisfied? He's not evaluating the answer he gave, he's evaluating the conversation and how it went.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
But
we do that in real time. So I don't know how OpenAI and ChatGPT and others do it. I think what they do is they have a version that's production live. This is like common software, protocol, but they'll have like a production version that's live, and they won't tweak that production version very much. At least like that's considered the stable branch. So they won't like change it very much, but then they will make tweaks and then consider that for the next version, right? Yes. But for Rafiki, I mean, we have the Leo approach. We just do it, right? So like each patrol that happens, that upgrade and that update just immediately goes live, multiple times a day. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So the moral of the story there is get as much stuff into threads as you can. Get as much data into threads as you can, because that is what's going to exponentially grow Rafiki's knowledge base, not only about Leo stuff, not only about Hive stuff, but about all of a diversity of topics and a wide variety of topics. And especially the more you can get edge cases and edge topics and stuff that isn't commonplace, whether it's you live in a small town or you have an obscure hobby or something like that, that type of knowledge is a gold mine, because sometimes Rafiki has tough time find that if it's just not a lot of stuff out on the internet. Let's go to the features this week. And I don't know what the biggest feature you would say is, Cal. You had a couple. I mean, you've had a lot that's come out. Last week was obviously adding the imaging capability and the re-image capability, and that was a big one. So now you can do images, you can do text, you can do all this other stuff. This week we had the scheduler where you can schedule threads. And the other one that you've been talking about, I don't know if it's fully live yet. And I don't know what it applies to, because you sent me a text saying that you were going to push it to another application, but the speech to text. So why don't you take the scheduler and speech to text, and then, as time allows, you can cover quickly some of the other features or highlight the other features that are of interest to you.
Yeah, I myself am having trouble keeping up with the exact list of features and when we're rolling them out. There's definitely new features pretty much every day. And I would say the number one way to keep up with everything is through the Rafiki Daily Digest, which is a new feature since the last Lions Den, where Rafiki will actually post a blog post on Hive, and he will give a full summary of the recent changes. So he gives kind of like a change log at the beginning, and he I'll just pull one up, and then I'll use that to kind of run through some of the updates too. So Rafiki will you see in this daily digest, he'll say, hey, Leo community, something like that. And then he'll say Rafiki with the daily digest. He'll mention like how many conversations were had in the last 24 hours. And then he will talk about the new features. So this is like the change log part. So these are the new features, improvements he made, and bug fixes. And again, this was like the latest one. So 20 hours ago for the prior 24 hours. So you can now schedule threads, scheduling commands added to Discord, and then some improvements were made on the notification system and content quality, and then premium user preferences, which actually we just rolled out another update this morning for, because a few people, actually Tasky reported one of those, were having issues with that. So we created something that's a lot more robust, which I'm sure Rafiki will mention in the next digest. So he'll mention the conversation of the day, which is I'm not surprised with Task, talking about SpaceX, and then what Rafiki can do. I actually really like this section. I remember when we were making the digest, I came up with this. Basically, what Rafiki does is he takes all the conversations and he says what were the most tool calls that were used, like the specific ones. So obviously, searching threads was used the most. That's pretty common. Web search used a lot, and then URL fetching, which is when you just give them a link and ask to summarize something. So like not a lot of people using image generation and things like that and scheduling, but when people use different tools, and I think, when Rafiki grows a lot in terms of users, this will get a lot more diverse. Every day you'll see what the top 3 tool calls are, and that will kind of help users like come up with new ideas and use cases for Rafiki, because you're seeing what other people are doing, with Rafiki on threads. So I highly recommend diving into the daily digest and just kind of keeping up with it. I think it's pretty fun to see Rafiki actually give his own updates. But in terms of the new features, the big one I would say, I guess the big 2, because this hasn't been, the speech to text one hasn't really been rolled out live yet, to everybody, but the big one is scheduling. So if you go to Discord now, there's a bunch of new commands, and I posted a ton of threads about this, but I also posted a blog post, so go check out my blog post if you want. If you go to Discord, there's a bunch of new Slack commands where you can schedule threads and post them actually from Discord. So Rafiki has this whole process he'll walk you through. If you ask him you want to schedule threads, he'll walk you through how to set it up. But basically, you have to give Rafiki posting authority for your account, which is pretty much how every app on Hive works. Like if you use really any app, you usually have to give them posting authority for your wallet on Hive, which is, it doesn't have any wallet functions, no like monetary functions. It's just posting authority. So it can obviously post threads and blogs for you. So the scheduling feature is really cool, and I was playing with it a lot yesterday, because especially when I'm on the go, one thing I've found that's tough, especially if I'm driving or something like that, is sometimes I just have an idea for a thread. I just want to post it. I mean, it's a lot of steps to I got to open my browser. I got to go to Inlio. I got to, do my PIN code to log in. Then I got to type the thread, make sure it looks good, and then send it, right? I have to proofread it and everything. With this new feature, I was doing this a lot yesterday. Literally, I just opened Discord and I just voice to text Rafiki, and I say, "Hey Rafiki, in 10 minutes, post a thread that says, posting using Discord is pretty cool." And Rafiki will clean up the text and then post it as a thread 10 minutes later, from my account, because he's using that posting authority. So it's a really cool feature. I think it'll get utilized a lot more as you get more comfortable with it, just for quick random ideas or things you want to schedule out in the future. I think it's really cool. It just goes to show you what does agentic really mean? It means doing things on your behalf when you're not around. And I think if you start getting deep into the weeds of using something like a scheduling feature, you'll start to really feel the power of what agentic means, which is I'm telling Rafiki to do things in the future, and I might be, sitting in a hot tub or eating dinner, and Rafiki is still in the background doing all those things for me. And that's the magic moment of AI right now. And if you go on X or look around for what people are talking about when it comes to AI, whether it's OpenClaw or other things like that, what people are excited about is agentic, right? People are excited about things that just run in the background for them. So this is where we're going to be headed with a lot of features. And this was kind of a good first step in terms of agentic automation at scale, because all of you guys can go use this. It's a premium user only feature, which is another good point of some of the things we're building, which is, we're building a lot of new features specifically for premium users. And this was always the vision of Leo Premium, which is, we have like the core features on InLeo, and then we're adding more features continuously. Then when when AI came out, in terms of Rafiki, now we've got like this explosion of potential features, and we're just going to keep adding more and more and more. My goal, and this will get me into the next feature, is that you probably have a lot of like SaaS, which is software as a service, subscriptions, for all sorts of things. My goal is that we can start to pull from those ideas and just pull them into Rafiki and include it in the Leo premium subscription. So a good example is Whisperflow, which I posted a thread about yesterday. I actually use it pretty heavily. It's really nice for voice to text. But this is like a really commonly used thing in the AI world right now, and I have a few ideas for how we're going to do this. But the starting point is through HivePro, which I've already told Task about, but I haven't really talked about it publicly. But HivePro is an app that I've been working with a friend on. It's like kind of its own standalone thing, but it's also got like Rafiki's API integrated, so it's kind of nice to have like it's standalone, but it's from our team, right? So I'm sharing some thread previews of this, but HivePro is basically like this like super rich markdown editor. You can write blog posts to Hive. You can write to any interface, so it's not InLeo specific. And it's like an AI co-pilot writing app. And there's all sorts of Rafiki features baked into it. That will have to go for when the launch happens. You guys can look at all those features. But the voice to text is the first use case of it is actually inside the app. Because we need it like integrated into an app. You can't just like add it to InLeo, for example, or add it to Discord. But the voice to text is now live in that app. And I just shared some screenshots of it. But basically, there's a little voice icon in the bottom. You can like move it around the page. And when you click on it, you can talk about, you can literally say anything you want. And you can basically write a blog post by talking. And what happens is Rafiki takes that text and uses his AI model to convert that text into a well-formatted blog post for you. But it's still your words. So it's like he's not changing your words. He's like cleaning up any mistakes. He's adding like punctuation. He's adding titles. So if you've ever wanted to like write a blog post by talking, that's what this feature does on this specific app. And then Whisperflow is an app that like runs on your computer or on your phone, and it's like always on. So like you can just press a hotkey and it records on any app. I think where we're headed with this is that right now we're adding it to this HivePro app, but then we will probably build a standalone app that's basically just a clone of something like Whisperflow. And it will be like Rafiki Flow or whatever you want to call it. And then you'll be able to just do voice to text everywhere. And right now, Whisperflow charges $12 a month for that subscription. So we will offer it included in the $10 a month Leo premium subscription. And if you like, just consider that on its own. I mean, there's plenty of people that are paying $12 a month that now could save $2 a month, use the one feature and not use any other features, and they're saving money, right? But what I think the future we're headed towards is we're able to bring in, let's say, like 100 different apps and features like this that Rafiki can build and self-manage. And then a user can come in and get Leo Premium, and they might have access to 100 different, software apps that they used to pay individually for. Maybe they had 5 of them that they paid individually for. They paid, just say they paid an average of $10 a month for each individual thing. They're spending $50 a month on that software. Rafiki has all of those and more included in the Leo Premium subscription. And now they can come in and have all the things they had for 1/5 of the price. And then, by the way, they also get all the other Leo Premium features like, the curation and all the other things, if they even care. I think there's gonna be plenty of people in the future that use Leo Premium and don't care about InLeo. They don't care about Leo Dex. They might not even use crypto. They literally might not even care about crypto at all. They might hold 0 crypto. But I think that they will use Leo AI and the Leo Premium subscription for a lot of these more like normie facing features. For example, like voice to text, which has nothing to do with crypto. But it's a great feature, and it's something that, I built with Rafiki just yesterday, right? So it's already like, take a look at these screenshots, but it's already live. Like you just click this is on the HivePro app, but you click this little voice to text button, and then you talk, and then it transcribes it. And then you can see here, this is just an example, but you can see here when you transcribe it, Rafiki will either give you the raw text back to you, like, so exactly what you said, or like just a cleaned up version, or he'll give you a structured version that's ready for a blog post. So like if I had, it kind of tells you what he's going to do here, but like it will detect the topics, it will create lists, it will make paragraphs, it will make headings, it'll just make it like formatted for a Hive blog post. So, but it's still in your own words. So it's like he's not. You'll notice in there in this list, he's not saying that he's going to change your words. He's saying that he's going to format your words for a blog post. So imagine that, we get off this call and Task wants to go write a blog post. He goes to this app and then he clicks transcription and just talks about whatever he wants to write a blog post on. Rafiki takes that whole thing, transcribes it, turns it into a blog post. By the way, this is at the API level. So any app that integrates the Rafiki API can have that and all the other Rafiki features, which, I think HivePro is just going to be a really good showcase of all these different features because there's a lot of them. But it's that app is just running on the Rafiki API. So any app now, like let's say like PeakD or EcenC or any other app out there, or ActiveFit, let's say they want to have AI features, but they don't want to spend the time and money to, buy the server racks and train the model and then, tweak the model. And I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it. They could just get the Rafiki API key, integrate it into their app, and now they have all those features. And then when we add new features, now they get all those features in real time. So I actually think another huge use case that we haven't really been talking about is the enterprise API for Rafiki, which is, other applications taking our API and utilizing it to get voice to text, to get, image generation. I mean, like imagine an ActiveFit, you go to the ActiveFit app, like a huge use case for ActiveFit would be, and maybe I should reach out to them because I haven't yet, but a huge use case for ActiveFit would be, hey, we're going to go into we're going to go on a run and we want to record it. I haven't used ActiveFit in a long time, admittedly, but we're going to go on a run. We're going to like record it and then post an ActiveFit about it. Well, while you're running, you could do a voice to text to create the text that goes along with your ActiveFit report card, and then you post it all. And then maybe you want to generate an image that goes along with that as well. You can do all of that with the Rafiki API, and an app like ActiveFit or any others could just integrate it very easily. So again, I think there's a couple different layers to this, and I know I gave like a Hive-based example, but there's a couple different layers to this where I think we're just going to see, as the feature sets expand to not even having to do with crypto at all, you're going to start to see people that may not care whatsoever about about Leo, about InLeo, about Leo Dex, about even Bitcoin. Like they're just not even going to care about that stuff. A WhisperFlow user might see Rafiki, and personally, I think our voice to text is already better than WhisperFlow, because you have to remember that Rafiki has training data on all threads. He has very unique human language detection that other AI models don't have. Kind of similar to how like Grok has X, all the X data. As threads grows, that capability just gets stronger and stronger. So it's hard to put where we're going to be in 6 months, and make it obvious because things are moving so fast. But I think it's very easy to say there's going to be 100+ features and apps that are built and managed by Rafiki that do things like WhisperFlow and all these other applications, but they all do it in-house and they all do it underneath the Leo Premium subscription. So I'm excited about it. I think it'll be really obvious as these things come out. Like Ahmad Manga's posting about the image generation and saying that it's better than ChatGPT. So like, it's hard to think that a community like us can make something better than like OpenAI. But when you've got this level of like specialization, that's where things get interesting. So.
Yeah, a few things that I want to add to that and go with the last verse is the specialization. Do not underestimate the impact that we have from pulling the data that's opened and getting real-time updates as compared to OpenAI. They are behind the eight ball because they don't have the real-time data that Google, Meta, and X do. Neither does Anthropic. although Anthropic is more of an enterprise AI than personal. But so again, more threads, more threads, more threads, and get the exponential curve going. Now, here's something I want to lay out and just help people to understand what the hell is going on. As Cal was talking about um, the speech to text and using that app, and he used the word transcript. Just think of this, and it's a very, very simple build. You take that application that he has talked about, HivePro, and you tie a video generator to it. Now you give somebody the capability of speaking into their phone or speaking into their computer, having a transcript created by Rafiki using HivePro, and then taking that and using that transcript to generate a video. So let's say for a commercial, a 30-second commercial. Let's say you want to put up an ad on social media. So you create a 30-second commercial. Let's say you want to create a short video for something. And ultimately, let's say you want to create a 30 or 90-minute movie or show. We're not at that point now with these video generators, but in a year or 2 years, we may well be. So that's something that I think, just keep in mind that when you have a feature, there's exponentiality in that, because another feature could be added down the road. Certain things can be tied into it. And all of a sudden, you just have, like Cal was saying, an agent or a suite of agents or a plate of agents that work together that allow you to go from what's inside your head, speak it out, and all of a sudden have video of it. I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's what Leo can do. And as I said, the integration between HivePro and a video generator is zero. It's very little. Now, I don't think you'll see that correlation or that tie right now, because video generation is, that's still in the embryonic stage. The entire industry is lagging on that. But a year and a half, 2 years, that'll be as common as image generators. Now, the third point I wanted to make here, and this goes to the tokenomics. And here's the importance of Rafiki if we're looking at it in the most simple of terms. All Rafiki payouts, upvotes that Rafiki receives go to at null. They burn. Both Hive and Leo. Now, I'll take it from the Leo perspective, because Leo has zero inflation. I sent out a thread about this earlier. Zero inflation. So every single Leo that Rafiki earns gets sent to null, burns, reduces the circulating float of Leo. The point being, Cal's talking about the exponentiality of threads. If Rafiki is engaging more, if we are engaging more with Rafiki, if we are upvoting Rafiki more, if we're doing all this stuff, and there's a lot more activity from Rafiki and from us, guess what happens? You are going to see more Leo burned. Since Leo went deflationary, since Leo capped, that number goes down, which, when you're looking at a value capture token, that's important if we want the price to go up, theoretically, at least in terms of the structure dynamics. Now, markets do what markets do, so that can always go counter or whatever. But the point being, this is why having all these features, having more people use Leo AI, just from that one simple premise, is crucial. Get more upvotes to Rafiki, that burns more Leo. Then what Cal was talking about, the flip side, building all these premium features, appealing to more people, getting more people to spend $10 a month when there's plenty of people spending $20 a month or $12 a month. See, notice what Cal did. Cal has talked about ChatGPT and the features, and if you're spending $20 there, spend $10 here. Let's tell me what features you use there that are important for $20. I'll build it here, and it's for $10, right? But notice he just branched out to another agent, to Whisper, or WhisperFlow, I guess it's called. That has nothing to do with ChatGPT or OpenAI. That's something completely different. But again, there's people spending $12 a month for that. What other agents are out there? How many other things are people spending money for? So all of this combines together to really help Leo. And the more that we have going, ultimately, either A, more Leo will be burned, or B, more people will have an interest in buying and holding Leo, even if it's just us, because there's more value there.
Yeah. It's there's so many, and I think the takeaway from that is that there's so many different pathways for growth, right? Like you can't just look at anything in a silo. Like people will look at the tokenomics and they'll say, well, what does this do for the tokenomics? And then people will look at the premium subscriptions. They'll be like, what does this do for the premium subscriptions? And there's obviously things that are being done for all of those. And then when you look at them all simultaneously, that's where I think things get really interesting for us, where we kind of live at the cross section of many different domains, which is what we've done for a lot of things. But now AI is kind of added to that toolkit in a big way, where we can compete with, I mean, WhisperFlow. I think they raised, I don't remember exactly what it was. I'm pretty sure they raised like tens of millions of dollars. They've got a lot of recurring revenue from subscribers. And then you've got like ChatGPT, like the multi-billion-dollar corporations that are out there. And I do actually think Rafiki now, hopefully with the 3.0 model, you guys can see, he actually competes with a lot of these like frontier applications and models. I mean, he's like just as good. And he's only getting better every single day. I mean, hopefully, and maybe these Lions Den episodes will be a good like historical view of all of this to like track how Rafiki improves over time, because I remember what Rafiki was like last week and the week before that and the week before that and the week before that. And I can see the progress continuously getting better and better and better. Here's a good example that I wanted to show is Ahmad Manga during the Threadcast was asking Rafiki how to give posting authority because he's trying to set up the scheduling feature. And then Rafiki gave this answer and he said how to grant the posting authority in Discord DMs. So he pulled, and this is a good example also of our conversation before. He pulled this both from threads and from the internet. So I'll show you how it came from both. He said the setup guide that I posted walks you through the whole flow. And you can see here, if you click this link, it takes you to this thread. So he pulled it from this thread. So he pulled some of the information. And this is a good example of why what you post on threads is actually important. Like if you post guides on how to do things or very relevant information, Rafiki will pull from them. And then when other people come in and ask those questions, Rafiki now has this knowledge at his fingertips instantly. So I wrote like this very short guide on how to do all this in Discord, and then Rafiki is now able to pull from it in his memory. He also simultaneously pulled from his own docs, which are actually self-managed by Rafiki. So if you haven't looked at the new docs yet, I would highly recommend looking at them because there's a whole Rafiki section here where literally everything related to Rafiki is laid out. And if you keep a close eye on this, you'll see it just continuously grow every single day. So these are all the different commands Rafiki can do on Discord. So you can just see there's a ton of commands already. Like here's all the signal commands. Here's all the schedule posting commands. So Ahmad Manga was just asking some questions about how to do all this. This is all in the docs. So whether he wants to go searching for the docs to read himself, or he could just ask Rafiki the questions. Rafiki's already trained on these. So, and then Rafiki actually self-maintains them. So every time there's a new GitHub commit for Rafiki, so every time we add a new feature or anything like that, Rafiki actually automatically updates these docs. And I've talked about this before, but this was a huge pain point for me, which was, the team moves so fast and we have so many different fronts that we're moving on, like Leo Dex, Leo Kit, Rafiki, Inleo, the Inleo mobile app. There's just so many different fronts that we're moving on at any given point in time. Keeping up with docs is really difficult because you not only need to add new stuff, you need to remove stuff that's no longer relevant, you need to modify stuff. And now we can just have Rafiki do all of that. So you can see like this page was updated a day ago. I have done zero. I have not touched these docs. All I did was give Rafiki access to them. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, maybe, is when I set this up. So I gave Rafiki access to them, and I have not touched a single thing on it. None of these words are mine. So this is all Rafiki looking at the commits on GitHub and just coming up with his own documentation of what he's capable of doing. So like go back in time a little bit, and Task, you asked me, can we add like stock prices and Forex prices to Rafiki? And then we added them, and then Rafiki saw those Git commits, and then he added them to the docs. So now you go to the docs and you can see that's a new feature. I don't know if this is, oh, and look at this, last updated 11 minutes ago. I can guarantee you I did not update these docs while we've been talking. So, it's pretty amazing. I wonder what he added here. I don't even know. Maybe it has to do with the voice. Oh yeah, here you go. Voice to text. That's now in the documentation. So Rafiki can now do voice to text. And you can find that capability in the docs. So not only is this important for Rafiki, it's important for everybody. And it's important for other AIs and like Google crawlers and other things where they can crawl these docs and they, imagine that you're using Grok and you say, hey, I wish there was an AI that lived on the blockchain and could like tell me the price of crypto, could trade for me, could schedule things for me, could help me earn money and help me earn crypto. And Grok will be like, wait, I've read these docs of this thing called Rafiki that does everything you just described. Here's a link. And it sends you over here. And then you find Rafiki. So
yeah, keep in mind, AI is becoming the new search engine. So
right.
The key is to get this stuff in Gemini, get this stuff in ChatGPT, get this stuff in Grok, because people are going to be using that, and that will be where the referrals come from. People aren't going to be going to Google search or DuckDuckGo or any of these others in the future, because as Cal was saying with the voice to text, you start to have this capability. And I noticed this Christmas with my sister and my brother-in-law. They use, I believe it's ChatGPT, but they just simply on their phones, they just ask it a question, and it gives them the answer, via speech. And it's just like talking to an assistant. That's where it's going. They don't use Google search. They just ask, and they give their, they give Grok a name, Bob or whatever the hell they call it. But the point being is that eliminates, open up the browser and go into Google search or whatever their search engine is, and type in, what is the closest airport to, Cincinnati, Ohio, or what airports are in Cincinnati, Ohio, or something like that. You just ask the damn thing. So this is where it's going, and this is why I think it's very important with the Lion's Den to not only keep talking about what features there are, to not only talk about what we need to keep doing to help Rafiki along, but also to understand the context, A, of Rafiki understanding what's going on, but B, the context that what we're building Rafiki in within the broader AI world and the world in general, and how this stuff is all going to tie together. So that I think is going to be a big part of the focus of the Lion's Den over the next, we'll say 6 months that Cal threw out that timeline for. Which, by the way, Cal, the Moonshot guys, Peter Diamandis and the guys he has on his show each week, they said that the AI cycle is 90 days. That's how quick it's moving. It's a 90-day cycle. That's what these frontier models are operating on, and the whole industry is basically it's an X growth every 90 days in terms of capabilities. So, whatever the benchmarks are that they're going by. So, you talk 6 months, you're talking two legs up, which again, understanding exponentials is not 2 legs up. It may be a 4x or it might be an 8x compared to where we are now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I'm a huge fan of this idea. I think I stole it from Elon Musk, um, of like iterations, right? So like everything is an iterative process, and the faster you can cycle iterations, the better you'll become. So, you know, frontier models might be operating on this 90-day cycle. Rafiki operates on like, I mean, really like
90
maybe a 90,
seconds.
yeah, 90, I was going to say 90 minutes, maybe 90 seconds. So
No,
like, you know,
because some of those threads,
yeah,
it'll pull that up after less than 5 minutes.
yeah, yeah. And it's because Rafiki indexes them in real time. So, and that's actually the speed of that is a function of his hardware. So, I posted a thread that I upgraded the hardware. We pretty much doubled his capacity, but then I ordered more hardware because it's going to take a while to get here. So, I'm looking out 6 months already because the lead time on like the latest gen hardware is pretty long. So I want to make sure that we're, not getting bottlenecked by hardware, because if we're right and Rafiki scales pretty exponentially, the need for hardware is going to grow exponentially alongside it. And it's because it might take 5 minutes to index a thread. It could take 3 seconds. I mean, if we had the hardware for it, it could be even faster, right? It could be as fast as the Hive block times. It's pretty close, and honestly, I think it's relatively like good enough for now. But over time, I think we can get that even faster. So that's how fast Rafiki adds to his brain, and then how fast Rafiki does those patrol commands I mentioned. He does them several times a day. So I mean, I think a good tagline would be like Rafiki self improves every 90 minutes. He's got a 90-minute cycle time where, every like 90 minutes or so, he runs a patrol. And that means that he's looking at all the conversations that have happened. He's looking for feedback. So when you guys use hashtag feedback or /feedback on Discord, he's looking at all of that. He's considering what he needs to do to improve. And then he's making suggestions for fixes and new features, and then rolling them out. It's like he basically gets them all the way to the finish line, and then asks for permission from us. Can I roll this out? And then I look at it, and it's like it's either ready or it's almost ready. We finalize it, then we roll it out. So
Yeah. The key takeaway is the exponentials, and just look at it this way. Rafiki 3.0, I don't even remember when it rolled out, maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, if that, 3 weeks ago, maybe. Look at the difference between that and where we are today. It's enormous. Just in those 3 weeks with Rafiki, with the features, with how quickly, and because of my conversations with Cal on the back end, I mean, he mentioned some of it with the docs, but there's a lot of other instances where his life is being made easier by Rafiki. And, you see it in some of the stuff when he does have some time to hang out on threads, give me an idea, and people are throwing ideas at him, and he's tagging the person 40 minutes later and says, okay, that one just went live. That's how quickly things can move. And, Wananda asked about a doodling tool. I mean, I don't know what utility that has, but maybe Kyle has already prompted Rafiki and say, what can you do to create a dueling tool and how would it work? And, maybe Rafiki comes up with something. Again, this may not be stuff that a lot of this stuff may not have appeal to the broad number of people. But if it takes, very little human input and it takes like maybe 40 minutes to roll out a feature, and once the feature's there, it's there, you might as well have the damn feature. Now if Cal had to rip his hair out over 3.5, 4 hours to try to get it to work that nobody's going to use, well, then who gives a crap? I mean, you skip that. And that's the way things were in the past, where it was contingent upon human time, human focus. Well, now with Rafiki, it's like like Cal said, half the time he'll wake up and there'll be 3 or 4 ideas in the morning that Rafiki came up with, and Rafiki did the research, did the coding, did everything. And, Cal has to go through and spot check it and maybe test it out and do some things. But now all of a sudden you got 3 or 4 different features that it took Cal maybe 15 minutes of going through and spot checking all this stuff. And there's 3 or 4 different features. So Are a lot
Yeah.
of people going to use it? Maybe not, but if a couple people use it and it's there and you can talk about it, and if somebody asks about it, because as you see, it gets added to documentation, and somebody asks, "Hey, Rafiki, do you have a dueling tool?" All of a sudden, Rafiki says, "Yeah, it was 3 months ago we put it up. This is how you use it and activate it." Well, boom, there it is. So
Yeah, I actually just posted in the threadcast whenever it shows up. Um, every day when I wake up, here it is. Rafiki actually will post. He posts GitHub issues and pull requests of things that either he thinks are good ideas or things that he's already made and coded. And then, obviously, if it's an idea, it's a GitHub issue. If it's a actual thing that he did, it's a pull request. So every day I wake up, I check, and Rafiki's already done a lot of these things, and then I can just review them and then either roll them out or I can save them for later. I can just do whatever I want with them. So I didn't really show much here, but I just wanted to show how that works. Like I wake up to this list of stuff. So you can see here there were two different Rafiki ideas, and then there was an Inleo mobile idea. So Rafiki is also connected to the other GitHubs of our team, and he's able to make suggestions to things like Inleo mobile or Leo Dex or Leo Kit. So he's not only making self-improvement suggestions, he's also making suggestions to the other apps based on a lot of different research that he pulls in every day. So he's looking at he actually is scanning. I call this the watchtower, but he's basically watching the watchtower applies to Leo Dex specifically. He's basically watching all the top cross-chain apps. So all the other competing apps that are in the cross-chain space, and he's looking at anything that the users are mentioning that are issues that they're facing on those apps, or bugs on those apps, or feature requests on those apps, or even new features that are rolled out by those apps. And then he's actually autonomously seeing that and then instantly submitting a GitHub issue for Leo Dex to consider that feature or fix. So he's not only applying this to the Rafiki's own code base. He's applying it to Inleo Mobile. He's applying it to Leo Dex, to Leo Kit, to the MCP. Everything else we build in the future. He's going to be tapped right into the GitHub directly and just submitting issues every single day. He has a directive to submit at least one GitHub issue every single 24 hours. So he's coming up with at least one idea per code base every 24 hours. If he has more, like you saw, he did 2 overnight for Rafiki. So actually, this is an interesting one. I shared just like a cutoff screenshot that said Rafiki number 25. If you read the full, it says Rafiki number 25, native auto voting service with AI enhanced curation. The reason why he came up with that issue, I actually was reading through it, is because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Hive.vote has been having like intermittent downtime over the past like couple days. Rafiki actually sees that users have been complaining about this on Hive, on Threads and other places. And then he submitted this GitHub issue proactively saying, hey, here's an issue that we can solve. But with Rafiki, we can clone Hive.vote's features and add them to Rafiki and then give them to the users. This is something that Rafiki suggested on his own, right? So it's like I said, if you extrapolate that to all the apps we build, he's now a watchtower on everything. And when he sees a good idea, he either will code the idea if it's like if it's simple enough, he'll just code it. If it's more complex, he'll just dive in with research agents. So he can. This is actually a feature in the mobile app. Rafiki can spawn 8 sub agents to do research. So he'll actually use his 8 sub agents to do research on any topic, and then he'll submit a GitHub issue with all that research compiled, so that us, the team, just come in, we see the research, and then we can actually just prompt Rafiki with the GitHub issue, and we can say, hey, let's step by step build this right now, and then Rafiki will co-pilot with us and build it. So this is called the what are people calling this? The sorry, my brain is a little slow today. Compound engineering is what people are calling this, which is you're engineering, you're kind of like building the machine that builds the machine. So you're engineering something that then compounds itself with more engineering. And that is where we're at with Rafiki, where not only is he self compounding, he's also compounding all the other projects that we run. So it's an interesting time. I mean, you're probably already seeing this, but you're going to see it more and more as we get deeper into this. That there's just features being rolled out across the board and very well managed, and like things that we used to let fall by the wayside a little bit because just a bandwidth issues. Rafiki is able to manage those things like documentation, for example, and it's an exciting time to really do anything.
Yeah, and what I want to add to that, and I think is very important to realize, I'll compare it to the knowledge base of somebody who's 80 years old. Think of that person and the life they lived and all the knowledge, experience, memories, understanding that is in their brain. Then compare it to a newborn. Do you think, and maybe an 80-year-old is wrong. Let's talk about a 50-year-old. Do you think they are going to operate at the same pace going forward? No, the 50-year-old has a much larger database to start with than a newborn. And so the newborn has to start from scratch. The 50-year-old, every new piece of information that goes in is exponential. And so my point here is Rafiki has all this stuff in operation. If somebody is starting today with blockchain AI, with AI on Hive, if somebody's trying to do what Rafiki is doing, they're starting from zero. Yeah, they have the whole Hive blockchain. They can pull that down, but that's all they have. They don't have any of the context. They don't have any of this stuff. And this is the point where, just because you see this on the output, they don't have access to Rafiki to just say, oh, I want that feature and steal it. Now, they can go to the API and tie into the API. Okay, that's something different because now they're linking in, they're actually using Rafiki. But if they are trying to develop their own thing, they're already how many months behind? And every month that goes by, you just start talking the exponentials. And this is what the Groks of the world, this is what the Geminis of the world, this is what they are counting on, is the fact that these things get so advanced that nobody could possibly catch up. So this is one thing to keep in mind. One other point that I want to make, I want to touch upon what Senior Coconut said. We can search on all the other AI for Rafiki and feed them in Leo for easy search, and feed them links for easy search. Excuse me. Yes, this is something that I've done a lot with Cal's post or the Leo Finance post, especially when they talk about Rafiki. I will go to Grok. I will say, give me a summary of this article. Drop the link in there. Have them give me the summary. Then I'll post the summary that Grok gives to X. So now all of a sudden, this information is now part of the X database. It's part of Grok. So especially if it's about Rafiki, this helps to feed Grok and improves Grok knowledge about Rafiki. So if somebody goes and asks Grok about Rafiki, guess what? What Cal said before. Now they are going to get the information about Rafiki from its own database. Grok doesn't have to go out and search the web for it because it's already in its database. It says, well, there was this link here and go to this, and it can give up suggestions. This is how we start feeding this stuff and push it outwards.
Yep.
So, all right. That's about all I had. Any other anything else you wanted to cover, or
No, I think we covered it. The space is just moving so fast. It's hard to keep up with. That's why I think these are good every week to just kind of checkpoint and see where things are at. And then also, obviously you're getting those daily Rafiki digests. So if you want to know what's new, that's a great way. And then you can also always just ask Rafiki. I think we're in the current state of AI and the agent revolution. The best way to learn anything related to AI is just to ask your AI. And some people have been calling this reverse prompting. but really, this is the best way to explore this space and really do anything. It's just literally prompt the AI. You know, you want to know something, prompt the AI. You want to do something, prompt the AI. If there's something that doesn't exist yet, use feedback and prompt the AI with the feedback. That is the loop that we're living in now, and it's amazing. It's a recursive learning loop, and things are only going to improve from here. Um, so yeah, I'm excited about everything. You're going to see a lot of new features rolled out very quickly, which you're already seeing, but I think it's only going to exponentially improve.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Again, we can't guarantee the time as of yet, but somewhere between the 10 a.m. Eastern time and let's say noonish, one-ish. And we'll try to I'll try to lock Cal down as best I can on Thursday and get the time out there for y'all.
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right.
Cool.
Tuesday, AMA.
Thanks.
Be there.
Yep. Tuesday, AMA. Thanks, Tass. Thanks, everyone.